When I was little, I didn't grow up playing NES, Super Nintendo, Mega Drive, or even Master System. I grew up playing Game Boy. The Game Boy was, and probably still is, my favourite console. It wasn't the best system ever made, certainly not technically speaking anyway, but Gunpei Yokoi was, well, a genius that knew that you didn't need the best hardware to be able to make the best games. On paper, Sega's Game Gear blew Nintendo's efforts out of the water. Apart from the fact that it went through batteries like a fat guy goes through McNuggets. Or I go through McNuggets, or anyone goes through McNuggets for that matter. I should get some McNuggets. Looking back at the original hardware now, it's easy to see that despite its simplicity, it hasn't really stood the test of time. The screen suffers from ghosting, which really affects fast-paced games like some platformers. But there's no denying that with more than 1,000 games on the system, it's easy to see why there's still love for it even today. As I said, this was and still is my favourite console of all time. This was actually my sister's, and I've since modded it to have a backlight. Although, she doesn't know that yet. Anyway, while the hardware hasn't exactly aged well, like many games born on the system, there's a Nintendo franchise, or sub-franchise at least, from the Game Boy days, that definitely does still stand up today, despite it starting with a launch title back in 1989.
Super Mario Land was the first handheld game in the Mario series. The job of crafting this landmark landed on the desks of Nintendo R&D1 and the Game Boy's inventor, Gunpei Yokoi. Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto was completely hands-off for this title, and it led to a very different style of game.
You see, R&D1 tended to avoid working on franchises they didn't create. Because of this, they threw everything out of the pram. They changed a lot of core elements from the original Super Mario Bros. Games. Gone was Princess Peach and in came Daisy. Gone was Bowser and in came Tatanga. You think that's a Goomba? Nope. It's a Chibibo? Chibibo? You think that's a Koopa? Nope. It's a one of those. It's one of those.
Similarly, you got a familiar but not quite the same kind of gameplay. Gone were the fireballs and replaced with super balls. Also, the levels were mixed up between your standard platform levels and shooters. The game's only 4 worlds long, but as there's no save function, that's actually fine. It means that it's great to just pick up and play whenever the mood takes you.
This was one of the first Game Boy games I ever had, but I always struggled when it came to World 3.
This is usually where I'd start burning through lives. I haven't seen such reckless disregard for hearts since Taylor Swift.
Sorry, that's mine. No, I keep rolling, I'll only be a sec. What? I am reading that right, aren't I? Yep, I am reading that right. We asked her about this, didn't we? No, I'm sure we did. Wait, I've got it here somewhere. Hang on. Okay, yeah, okay, I've got it. Just listen.
And I really appreciate you telling me about it. That's really nice. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Like, the heads up is so nice. It was without, like, even asking or seeing if I'd be okay with it, and I just really appreciate it. Just, like, it's a really cool thing to do, like, and a really good show of friendship, so thank you.
See? I can do modern pop culture too. Now, if you'll let me finish, Super Mario Land was a hit. It may have had very simple graphics, the sprites were tiny, and the game was short, but it didn't matter. It was fun. Unless you're Cody and Kelsey from the Game Blitz podcast, though, who both didn't really like it, in which case, f*** you. F*** you. But no, seriously, keep doing what you're doing. I like the podcast, and thanks for the pink gorilla. Love you, bye. However, when it came to following this game with a sequel, the slate was once again wiped clean, and Nintendo started from scratch. There was still no Miyamoto, but even so, it resulted in one of the best games on the original system, and one of my favourite games of all time. Super Mario Land 2, The 6 Golden Coins. Look at that box art. Who says getting screen grabs of early Game Boy games was hard? You show 'em, Nintendo. The game was introduced via Nintendo Power Issue 42, or at least in the US. We never got Nintendo Power in the UK because f*** us. And it launched the Mario vs. Wario comic strip, which never really made sense because, well, it just makes Mario look like an asshole. This is no linear platformer. In 6 Golden Coins we are introduced to another new villain, Wario.
Being obsessed with money, Wario puts a spell over Mario's castle and his world, brainwashing its inhabitants into believing that Wario is their master and Mario is their enemy. It's up to you to guide Mario through various themed zones to collect coins. In Mario Zone, there's even a level dedicated to Nintendo's failed Lego clone, N&B Block. Once you've collected all 6 coins, you can unlock the castle and face Wario in the final boss fight.
Unlike with the original game, players are able to save their progress, and should they run out of lives, they simply lose the coins that they've collected and have to do each zone's final level again, not all the levels.
It also added a new mechanic of, rather than collecting 100 regular coins for a new life, you can use the coins to pay for power-ups, such as turning Mario into a flying Hugh Hefner. Once Wario is defeated, the castle is restored as Mario's and the game ends.
Despite being so well received, the Super Mario Land series decided to take a bit of an unexpected turn. For the third game in the series, the developers threw out the one thing that they'd kept consistent in the first 2 games. Mario is tossed aside in favour of making Wario the star.
The player is put in control of our anti-hero as he goes on a quest to collect pirate gold in order to build his own castle this time, seeing as that Mario took his castle back in the last game.
This was a surprising move from Nintendo, as the main goal of the game was to be the bad guy. In fact, that was even the catchphrase from the adverts.
You're getting very greedy. You are me, Wario. You're very handsome. You have amazing powers. Plunder and pillage pirates' treasure. Bag up 1,000,000,000 coins. Buying me a castle bigger than Mario's. Repeat after me. I'm the bad guy in Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, where being bad is good and greed is good. Come and get it on Game Boy.
In this game, you don't save a princess. In fact, you don't really save anyone. The only goal of the game is to steal as much gold as possible. At the end of the game, the more gold that you have, the bigger castle you can build. And, as a result, the smaller you can make Mario's penis look. Then we'll see who Daisy wants, won't we? In fact, the amount of gold you collect during the game directly affects what ending you see. There are different sized castles programmed into the game's code, so the more gold that you've collected, the bigger your penis. Castle! Castle. Wario Land didn't sell as well as its predecessors, but it was at least a critical hit. So much so that Nintendo actually decided to drop Mario completely and continue with Wario for the future of the series. Sorry. Keep rolling. Keep rolling. Oh, wow. Oh, that's better. Oh, okay. Now that was actually a bit of a brave move, because this meant that a lot of pressure was put on the series to carry the launch of the Virtual Boy as the system's flagship first-party platformer. Now, okay, I've already done a video on Virtual Wario Land, which you can watch by clicking on the link that will appear here somewhere. Here? Here. Anyway. After the Virtual Boy died, Nintendo took their time before releasing the next game in the series, possibly due to the fact that not only had the Virtual Boy passed away, but so had the producer of all 4 previous games.
Gunpei Yokoi had left Nintendo after the failure of the Virtual Boy and had set up a new company with several of his subordinates to create the Wonder Swan. Sadly, he was killed in a car accident in 1996, and we never really got to see what else he had up his sleeve.
In 1998 and in 1999, a new Wario Land game appeared on store shelves, with a storyline that completely ignored that of Virtual Wario Land. Wario Land 2 was released on the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color in Europe and the US. Now, these are essentially the same game, the only differences being that one is on a Super Game Boy pack and then the other one has a Game Boy Color palette natively. Thing is though, I actually wouldn't recommend either of these. I would play the Japanese version. Now, the reason for that lies in one of the core aspects of the gameplay in Wario Land 2. He can't die. Instead of dying, he simply loses some of the coins and enters a different state, as it were, some of which are setbacks, some of which are useful. But it's this one that's the most strange. In English versions of the game, it's known as Crazy Wario, and it's caused by a penguin throwing a ball at Wario. But come on, we all know what that is. We've all seen Jersey Shore, and it turns out this was actually something that was censored in Western audiences. In the Japanese version, the penguins throw beer. So we know for a fact, That is Drunk Wario. But it's okay, all you need to do is hydrate and you'll be fine.
After the success of Wario Land 2 on both the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, Nintendo followed these up with Wario Land 3, often considered to be the best in the series, and the 16-bit style Wario Land 4 on the Game Boy Advance. Despite selling over 1 million copies and receiving a great reception, Wario Land 4 was massively eclipsed by the sale of re-released Mario Bros. Games in the form of the Super Mario Advance series. Even the NES Classics release of the original Super Mario Bros. Outsold Wario Land 4.
And so, when Nintendo moved on to their next handheld, the DS, they completely abandoned the Super Mario Land and the Wario Land series in favour of tying in their new Super Mario Bros. Brand on the DS and the Wii, which was then carried forward to the 3DS and the Wii U, as well as it being the design inspiration for Super Mario Run series on mobile devices. We thought we'd seen the last of the Wario Land games, but there was one more released, this time on a home console. In 2008, we got Wario Land Shake It, or Wario Land the Shake Dimension on the Wii.
In a completely revamped style, Wario joins the fight to rescue Queen Merelda and the Merfolk, only upon hearing of a bottomless treasure sack, of course. He's pulled into the Shake Dimension with Captain Syrup to join the search for the Queen and therefore the treasure. The art style of this game is amazing. It's not even that it's a cel-shaded style, but all of the animations, the backgrounds, the scenery, they're all hand-drawn.
In fact, there's over 2,000 hand-drawn frames just for Wario's movements, never mind the movements of all the other characters in the game.
The developers wanted this to feel like the next in line from Wario Land 4, despite the 7-year gap and the jump from handheld to home console.
You play by holding the Wii remote sideways so that it emulates an NES or Super Nintendo gamepad, much like you would do on the new Super Mario Bros. Wii games. Initially, the idea was going to be that the player would move the controller either horizontally or vertically to perform specific actions. But, well, the motion control of the Wii wasn't quite as sophisticated as it needed to be, so instead, I have to channel a 13-year-old me and give it one of these. Nearly there. And, well, that's it. That's all of them. There was also Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS, but in reality that's a Mario Brothers game, just with the added land suffix so that it can distinguish it from the Super Mario 3D World game on the Wii U. I miss the Super Mario Land and the Wario Land series of games. They're genuinely some of my favourite games ever, but alas, here we are. The quest is over.
Thank you for watching this video, and if you'd like to watch me playing Virtual Boy Wario Land but as a Game Boy game, you can click on the video that's on screen now, and also please make sure to hit that subscribe button.